Listen well, Mama. In this house, there is only one queen, me. Everybody else works.
As long as you move forward, my son, I can walk backward if I must.
Kwesi, please, I beg you.
If people must talk, let them say that I chose my mother's life over your greed.
African Karma Stories.
Night pressed against the glass walls of the mansion like a dark ocean. Thunder rolled far above Cantonments, and the chandelier in the dining room glowed softly over a single figure at the table. Auntie Efua sat there alone, her back a little bent, her wrapper tied neatly around her thin waist. In front of her, steam curled from a deep bowl of groundnut soup. She smiled as she lifted the spoon. "Ah, Father in heaven," she whispered, "you have done more than I asked. My son lives in a house like this, and I am eating warm soup in his home. Who am I that you remember me?" The first sip slid down her throat, rich and creamy. A warmth spread through her chest. For a moment, joy washed over the years of struggle, the nights under a leaking roof, the days of walking with an aching leg just to sell tomatoes for school fees. From the shadowed doorway behind her, two silhouettes watched. One voice, smooth and sharp like a new knife, floated into the room. "Make sure you finish everything, Mama," Madam Abena said sweetly. "It was made just for you." Beside her, Yas' laugh was a soft hiss. "Yes, Mama, don't waste it. In this house, we don't throw food away." Auntie Efua turned slightly, her face lighting up. "Thank you, my daughters," she said. "May God bless the hands that cooked this." She took another spoonful, then another. On the third, a strange taste brushed her tongue, a bitter note hiding under the pepper and spice. She frowned, blinking. Maybe I added too much Maggie," she murmured to herself, forcing a smile as she swallowed again. "It is still good. I must not complain. These children are trying." But the warmth in her chest suddenly turned to fire. A tight band wrapped itself around her ribs. Her fingers loosened. The spoon clattered against the side of the bowl. The room seemed to tilt. Distant thunder boomed, and the chandelier lights blurred into bright circles. "Mama, is something wrong?" Abena's voice sounded far away now, almost amused. I feel dizzy," Auntie Efua gasped. Her hand flew to her throat. The air refused to enter her lungs. Her heart slammed against her ribs as if it wanted to escape. The spoon slipped from her grip and dropped into the soup. The bowl rocked, then tipped, red gold liquid rushing across the white tablecloth like a spreading wound. Her chair scraped back. She tried to stand, but her weak leg buckled. The world spun. For a heartbeat she saw it clearly. The marble floor, the sparkling chandelier, and the two women in the doorway, their faces unreadable. "Please help," she whispered. Her body crumpled, hitting the cold floor with a dull thud. The only sound left in the vast dining room was her ragged, choking breaths and the drip of soup falling from the edge of the table. She thought she was simply eating her son's food in peace. She did not know that with every spoonful, someone else's plan was sliding deeper into her body. And in the shadows, the people who called her Mama were quietly deciding whether she would live or die. Morning sunlight poured through the glass walls of the Cantonments mansion, spilling across the gleaming marble like liquid gold. In the kitchen, Auntie Efua stood at the sink, her wrapper tied carefully, her headscarf neat. The tap ran steadily as she washed plates one by one, humming a soft hymn under her breath. Each movement was slow but deliberate. Her left leg, the weaker one, trembled slightly whenever she shifted her weight. Still, she smiled. Every plate she washed felt like a small way of thanking God for bringing her here, into the house her son had built. Behind her, high heels clicked on the tiles. A voice, smooth and sharp at the same time, floated through the kitchen. So this is why I smelled village soap this morning. Auntie Efua turned quickly, almost dropping the plate. Madam Abena stood at the doorway, dressed in an expensive silk wrapper that shone under the light. Gold bangles rang softly on her wrist as she placed both hands on her hips. "Good morning, Madam Abena," Auntie Efua said quickly, bowing her head. "I wanted to finish these before the girl comes." "I didn't want you to." Abena walked closer, her perfume heavy and sweet. "Look at the water on this floor," she cut in, pointing with a manicured finger. "Do you think this is your Denu compound, where you can splash water anyhow? These are imported tiles, Mama. If you break one, can you buy it?"
I'm sorry.
"I'll mop it now." She bent carefully, reaching for the mop. Her leg shook under her, but she forced it to obey. Abena watched her for a moment, eyes resting on the old woman's thin shoulders and faded cloth. "In this house," she said softly, "we like things spotless. My husband's colleagues visit. Investors visit. I will not have them think my son's mother is some village woman who doesn't know how to live in a rich home. Do you understand?" The words, "my son's mother," came out of her mouth like a complaint instead of honor. "Yes, my daughter," Efua whispered. "I will be careful." Abena's lips curved in a smile that never reached her eyes. "Good. Finish quickly. Kwesi must not see this place looking like a chop bar kitchen." She turned and left, heels clicking, leaving behind only her perfume and the echo of her words. Auntie Efua stared at the wet floor for a long second, her chest tight. Then she bent again, humming to herself as she wiped away every drop, as if she could also wipe away the shame soaking into her heart. Later that morning, the living room buzzed with quiet energy. The flat-screen TV glowed with muted news, stock prices scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Kwesi adjusted the knot of his tie in a mirror near the stairs, his suit a deep navy that matched the sleek car keys in his hand. "Mama," he called, "where is my favorite handkerchief? The white one with the blue border." Auntie Efua hurried out from the hallway, slightly out of breath. She held the handkerchief folded neatly, smelling faintly of soap and sunshine. "Here, my son," she said, placing it in his hand. "I pressed it for you last night." Kwesi smiled, his whole face lighting up like a boy again. "Ei, Mama, you still spoil me," he teased. Before she could answer, Madam Abena glided downstairs, phone in hand, earrings glittering. "Ah, my handsome son-in-law," she sang. "You'll make those investors faint today." Kwesi laughed. "Good morning, Mummy Abena. You know if the deal fails, it means your fufu was not strong enough last night." She laughed loudly, touching his arm. "God forbid. With me in this house, only success will enter." She turned quickly to Efua, her smile widening. "Mama, sit and rest now. You worked too hard yesterday. I told you. In this house you are queen, not maid." Auntie Efua lowered her eyes, unsure how to respond. Just minutes earlier, this same woman had scolded her like a child. Kwesi looked between them, pleased. "You see? I told you my mother-in-law has a golden heart," he said proudly. "God blessed me with the best women, my mother and my wife's mother." From the staircase, Ya descended, dressed casually but expensively. She kissed Kwesi's cheek, wrapping one arm around his. "Baby, are you leaving already?" she asked, voice soft. "Yes, that presentation won't pitch itself," he replied. "Take care of my mother for me, okay?" Ya smiled, glancing briefly at Efua. "Of course. She's in good hands." Abena placed a hand dramatically over her chest. "Leave her to us. We'll treat her like an egg." Kwesi grinned, satisfied. He hugged his mother tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of soap and palm oil. I'll be back late, Mama. Rest, eh? No market, no carrying loads again. This is your time to enjoy. Yes, my son, she whispered, hugging him as if trying to hold on to years that had already slipped away. God go with you. The front door closed behind him with a firm click. His footsteps faded. His car engine roared to life and drove out of the compound. The house fell quiet. The warm glow in Abena's eyes cooled instantly, like a candle snuffed by a gust of wind. Silence stretched across the living room for a beat, thick and heavy. Then Abena turned, her smile vanishing. Yeah, she said sharply. Go and change that top. It looks cheap on you. Ya rolled her eyes but obeyed, walking back up the stairs. Abena slowly faced Auntie Efua. Her voice dropped an octave. As for you, what are you still doing standing there like a statue? She snapped. The crystal glasses from last night are still in the dining room. Go and wash them, and scrub the dining table too. There is a mark on it from your stew. Efua blinked in confusion. I thought the house girl would. Abena stepped closer, towering over her despite the age difference. Listen well, Mama, she said quietly. In this house, there is only one queen, me. Everybody else works. You are not paying rent here. You are eating for free. So if you want to stay, use those hands. Auntie Efua's throat tightened. I don't mind working, she answered softly. I just don't want to cause trouble. Then stop asking questions and move. Abena grabbed a crumpled apron from a chair and tossed it at her. Wear that. When my friends come later, I don't want them seeing you in your village wrapper. They'll think we hired cheap help. The apron landed on Efua's chest and slipped to the floor. For a moment she simply stared at it, her eyes stinging. In Denu, people greeted her with respect. Auntie Efua the strong. Market lion. Here, in her son's house, she felt suddenly smaller than a grain of gari. She bent slowly, picked up the apron, and tied it around her waist. As you say, she murmured. Abena nodded once, satisfied. And don't break even one glass, she added, already turning away. If you do, I'll deduct it from the little money my husband sends your village relatives. The threat hung in the air long after she left. Auntie Efua walked toward the dining room, each step heavy. She carried the tray of delicate glasses to the sink, her tired hands trembling. Outside, the Accra sun climbed higher, bright and merciless. Inside the mansion, an old woman's dignity began to quietly crumble, piece by invisible piece. Long before the marble floors and imported curtains, there was red dust. The scene shifts to Denu village many years earlier. The afternoon sun glared down on a bustling market, painting everything in shades of orange. Women called out prices, babies cried on backs, and the smell of smoked fish mixed with fresh pepper and charcoal smoke. In the middle of it all, a younger Auntie Efua, her back straight, her legs still stronger though one was slightly thinner, balanced a heavy basin of tomatoes on her head. Sweat shone on her forehead, but her eyes were bright. At her stall, little Kwesi, no more than 8 years old, sat at a wooden table scribbling in a torn exercise book. His uniform was faded, but it was clean, and his shoes, though worn, were polished. Ma, I got 9 over 10 in maths today, he shouted as she set down the basin. Hey, my son is a genius, she cried, grinning wide. Tomorrow it will be 10 over 10. Then the world will not be able to hold you. A customer approached, haggling over prices. Efua bargained with practiced speed. Yet every few seconds her eyes darted to her son's book, pride swelling in her chest. Later, as the sky blushed purple, she counted the day's money under a flickering kerosene lamp. It was not much, Coins clinked softly on the low wooden table. The wind hissed through holes in the rusty roof. Kwesi slept in the corner, curled on a thin mattress, one hand still on his exercise book. Efua stared at the small pile of coins, frowning. School fees were due. The landlord was also waiting. Her leg throbbed quietly from a long day of walking between stalls. She opened a small tin box and took out her only pair of gold earrings. Old but beautiful, a gift from her mother on her wedding day. She weighed them in her palm, heart heavy. "He must not stop school because of my pride," she whispered. The next morning, the earrings lay on a jeweler's mat at the market, shining under the sun. The last piece of luxury she owned, traded for crumpled notes that would keep Kwesi in class one more term. She walked home lighter in jewelry, heavier in sacrifice, but her smile stretched wide when she placed the school receipt in a cloth and tucked it under her pillow. "As long as you move forward, my son," she murmured. "I can walk backward if I must." Rain hammered against the tin roof of their small hut. Water leaked through a dozen tiny holes, dripping into bowls and pots that Efua had carefully arranged across the floor. She stood near the doorway, watching Kwesi sleep under the patched mosquito net, his thin chest rising and falling. A knock sounded, soft but urgent. She opened the door to find the headmaster standing there, his umbrella dripping. "Madam Efua," he said gently, "I don't like to disturb you at night, but the exam fees, tomorrow is the last day. If Kwesi doesn't pay, he can't sit for the test. He's one of my best pupils. It would be a shame." Her heart sank. I will bring it tomorrow morning," she said, forcing a smile she didn't feel. No matter what. All night she lay awake, staring at the darkness, listening to the rain drum like a marching army on the roof. When the first pale light slipped over the horizon, she rose. She wrapped a threadbare cloth around her shoulders and walked to the small wooden box under her bed. Inside lay a carefully folded Kent cloth, her funeral cloth, the one good thing she had kept for her own burial. It was the last thing of value she owned. Her fingers lingered on the smooth fabric. "If I die, I won't know what I'm wearing," she whispered with a sad laugh. "But if he fails this exam, he will feel it all his life." She took the cloth, pressed it to her lips, and carried it to the market to sell. By noon, Kwesi sat in the classroom, pen in hand, eyes shining, writing his exam with fierce concentration. Outside, under the same sun, his mother sat on an overturned crate, leg throbbing, counting the few coins left after paying the fees, but smiling as if she were the richest woman alive. Years blurred past like pages flicking in a book. The scene shifts to a small village bar with a single old television fixed to the wall. A crowd had gathered, chairs pulled close, drinks forgotten. On the screen, a news anchor spoke excitedly. The young entrepreneur from Denu village who has taken Accra by storm. Kwesi Efua Holdings has just sealed a multi-million CD deal with foreign investors. The camera cut to a smartly dressed man in a suit. Kwesi, now in his late 20s, shaking hands with officials, flashes of cameras exploding around him. In front of the TV, Auntie Efua sat on a plastic chair, her faded cloth wrapped tightly, hands covering her mouth. Tears rolled freely down her wrinkled cheeks. "That's my son," she whispered to anyone who would listen. "The boy who used to share one egg with me. Now look at him." She clutched an old newspaper someone had given her with his photo on the front page. She smoothed it again and again, even though the paper was already wrinkled from many readings. As the villagers congratulated her, her heart silently repeated the same prayer. "God, let me see the house where he sleeps now, just once. Let me step in and say, 'You did not waste my struggle.'" The news anchor's voice faded, and with it, The scene melts back into the glossy present of the mansion, where that same son's mother now scrubbed floors instead of being honored. Evening settled over Cantonments again, warm and golden. The dining table gleamed, set with fine china and glinting silver. Kwesi sat at the head, still in his work shirt, sleeves rolled up. Ya sat beside him, scrolling through her phone. Auntie Efua stood slightly behind, smoothing her wrapper nervously. Madam Abena swept into the room with a pot in her hands, her voice cheerful. "Dinner is ready," she announced. She served Kwesi first, piling his plate with jollof and grilled chicken. "Ah, Mama Abena, you want to make me fat?" he laughed. She laughed along, tapping his shoulder. "I can afford to. I raised a billionaire. Eat." Then she turned to Efua.
Mama, sit, sit, she insisted loudly.
"You are not a servant here. Sit at the table with us." Efua hesitated, glancing at Ya. "Sit, my mother," Kwesi urged warmly. "All this is for you." She lowered herself carefully into a chair. For a brief moment, warmth flooded her chest. This, she thought, is what she had imagined. Eating with her son in his big house, laughing like equals. Abena spooned stew onto her plate, smiling brightly. "You see, Kwesi," she said, "since Mama came, the house is more blessed. I told Ya we will take care of her like our own." Ya nodded, though her eyes never left her phone. Kwesi looked between them, heart full. "I thank God for you both," he said. "Two mothers. What more can I ask?" The conversation drifted to business and news. Whenever Kwesi looked up, he saw Abena offering Efua more meat, more stew, always with a smile. He did not see the quick, hard pinches under the table whenever Efua tried to speak. He did not see the warning glare that said, "Don't you dare open your mouth." On the surface, it was a perfect family meal. Underneath, something rotten quietly grew. Later that night, the dishes were cleared, and the living room lights dimmed. Kwesi sat on the sofa, television remote in hand, while Abena and Ya pretended to tidy up. Auntie Efua stepped out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her cloth. "Kwesi," she began softly, "can I talk to?" Abena's voice sliced through her sentence like a blade. "Ah, Mama," she cried, hurrying to her side, almost bumping into her. "You must be tired. You worked too much today. Come and rest in your room." She slipped an arm around Efua's shoulders, gripping a little too tightly, steering her toward the corridor. "But I wanted to." "Later," Abena whispered sharply into her ear. "Do not embarrass me." Kwesi glanced over his shoulder. "Everything okay?" he asked. Abena turned back with a sunny smile. "Everything is perfect," she said. "Mama just gets shy when many people are around. She wanted to thank you for buying her new cloth. That's all." "Oh," Kwesi chuckled. "She doesn't have to thank me. She carried me for 9 months." Efua stood at the corridor, half-turned, wanting to correct the lie, but Abena's fingers dug into her arm. "Go and rest," Abena hissed under her breath. "You talk too much." "Yes, I will rest," Efua said instead, her voice small. She shuffled slowly down the hall. From behind, Kwesi called again.
Manga.
She turned, hope flickering. "Yes, my son." He smiled. "Are you happy here?" Her mouth opened. The words tangled in her throat. Images flashed. Abena's insults, the long hours of scrubbing, the humiliation of being called staff. Abena's eyes bored into her from behind Kwesi's back. Warning. "Yes," Efua finally said, forcing the corners of her mouth upward. "I am very happy." "Good," he replied, satisfied. "You deserve it." As she disappeared into her room, the door closing softly, Her heart whispered a different truth. If this was happiness, why did it feel like a cage? The next afternoon, the mansion was quiet. Auntie Efua carried a basket of freshly folded towels down the hallway. Her leg ached from climbing the stairs, but she pushed on, murmuring a prayer between breaths. As she turned a corner, a door flew open suddenly. Madam Abena stormed out of her bedroom, phone pressed to her ear, not looking. The heavy door smacked into Efua's arm, and the basket of towels tumbled to the floor. Ah! Efua cried, stumbling back. Her wrist hit the doorframe with a sickening thud. Pain shot up to her elbow. Abena glanced at her, annoyance flashing across her face. "Can you not stand in front of doors?" she snapped, covering the phone. "Must you block every passage in this house?" I was just passing." Efua winced, cradling her wrist. A dark bruise already began to bloom beneath her skin. Abena rolled her eyes and returned to her call. "No, not you," she said sweetly into the phone. "Just the old woman getting in the way again. As I was saying, the party on Saturday." She stepped over the fallen towels and walked away. Later, as the sun began to set, Kwesi returned from work. He found his mother sitting on the edge of her bed, gently massaging her wrist. "Mama, what happened?" he asked, alarmed. She froze. Abena appeared at the doorway instantly, as if she had been listening. "Oh, that," she said quickly, placing a hand on Kwesi's shoulder. "She slipped on the stairs earlier. I told her not to clean upstairs, but you know how stubborn old people are." Efua opened her mouth. "That is not." Abena tightened her fingers on Kwesi's shoulder, her nails biting through his shirt. She gave Efua a warning stare that needed no words. Kwesi frowned, concern deepening. "Mama, you fell?" Efua looked at her son's worried face, the face she had worked her whole life to protect. She swallowed her truth. "Yes," she whispered. "My leg is weak. It was my fault." Mama," he sighed, gently holding her bruised wrist. "Please be careful. We have workers here. You don't need to prove anything. Rest, okay?" Abena sighed dramatically. "I keep telling her," she added, "but she insists. If something happens to her, my heart will die." Kwesi smiled faintly, touched by what he thought was concern. Efua watched them through a veil of pain, her wrist throbbing, her heart aching even more. The first bruise faded slowly. The first lie stayed. Saturday evening draped itself over Accra like a glittering shawl. Cars lined the driveway, engines ticking as they cooled. Laughter and music floated from the living room where Abena and Ya hosted a small gathering of important guests. Inside, men in crisp shirts and women in elegant dresses lounged on plush sofas, glasses of wine in hand. Kwesi stood among them, smiling politely as he listened to a CEO discuss investments. "Kwesi," one older businessman said, patting his shoulder, "we've heard many stories about your hard work, but I believe there is a strong woman somewhere behind you." "Yes," another chimed in. "We must meet your mother, the woman who raised a lion." Kwesi smiled proudly. "My mother is here," he began. Before he could finish, Abena glided forward, shaking her head gently. "Ah, gentlemen," she said with a sorrowful smile. "Mama isn't feeling well tonight. Her health is delicate. Crowds tire her quickly. The doctor says she must rest." The men nodded sympathetically. "Oh, that's a shame," one said. "Give her our greetings. I take care of her every day," Abena added quickly, laying a hand on her chest. "She is like my own mother. Don't worry. She lacks nothing here." "You are a good daughter-in-law," the businessman replied. "Kwesi, you're blessed." Kwesi's chest swelled with gratitude. Thank you, Mummy Abena, he said softly. In the shadows of the corridor, just beyond the living room door, Auntie Efua stood barefoot, clutching the edge of her faded wrapper. She had heard the whole conversation. Her fingers dug into the fabric as she listened to them praise the woman who made her scrub floors on aching knees. She had bathed carefully that afternoon, hoping she would be introduced to Kwesi's guests. Instead, she now stood hidden, like a secret shame. She watched her son throw back his head and laugh at something a guest said, his arm briefly resting on Abena's shoulder with affectionate familiarity. He's blessed to have you, the guest said. Efua swallowed hard, pressing her back against the cool wall so they would not see her tears. Blessed, but blind. Later that night, the house had quieted. The last guests had left, and the faint smell of perfume still lingered in the air. In the kitchen, the young househelp scraped leftovers into a container when Abena walked in, holding her heels in one hand. Leave that, Abena ordered. Go to bed. Yes, madam, the girl replied quickly, setting down the spoon. As the girl moved to take a covered plate from the counter, Abena stopped her. What are you doing? She asked. I'm taking food to Mama Efua, the girl said. She didn't eat since afternoon. Abena's eyes narrowed. From today, nobody serves her without my permission, she said coldly. She is not a child. If she is hungry, she should have come out. But you told her not to join the guests. The slap came fast and sharp, a quick sting across the girl's cheek. Do I pay you to argue? Abena hissed. Take that food to the dogs outside. You hear me? If she asks, tell her doctor said she must eat light at night. No meat, only small soup. Tears welled in the girl's eyes. Yes, madam.
I'm sorry.
She picked up the plate with shaking hands and slipped out the back door. Abena opened the fridge, took out the last piece of grilled chicken, and chewed thoughtfully, staring at nothing. Upstairs, in a small room that smelled faintly of damp cloth and camphor, Auntie Efua lay on her narrow bed, clutching her stomach as it growled softly. She had told herself they were busy. They had forgotten. She had waited, listening for footsteps that never came. Finally, she sat up. Maybe I should not disturb them, she murmured. They've worked hard hosting. She reached for a cup of water, sipping slowly to quiet the ache. In the kitchen, Abena licked the last bit of grease from her fingers and smiled to herself. One day without meat won't kill her, she said, but it will remind her who feeds her now. The following week, the sky over Accra darkened with heavy clouds. A restless wind rattled the palm trees around the mansion. In the corridor, Auntie Efua carried a bucket of water toward the guest bathroom, moving carefully so it wouldn't splash. Each step sent a reminder of pain up her weakened leg. She was halfway there when Abena's voice floated from behind. You are still carrying buckets at your age? Abena said, her tone mocking. Do you want to die on my floor? Efua turned, breathing hard. I just wanted to help, she replied softly. The girl is washing outside. The bathroom was dirty. Abena crossed her arms. Listen to me very well, Mama, she said, her eyes cold. This is not Denu where you can do things anyhow. This is my son's billionaire house. People look at everything. If they see you limping around with dirty buckets, they will think we are running a charity home. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a dangerous whisper. If you cannot keep up with this house, pack your things and go back to the village. Let your neighbors see that the mother of a billionaire still lives in a leaking hut. I will even pay your transport. Efua's fingers tightened on the bucket handle. Go back to the village? To the same streets where people now spoke of her with pride? To explain why she had left the mansion her son built? Humiliation washed over her like cold rain. I can manage, she said quickly. Please don't be angry. I will work harder. Abena smiled, pleased. That's better. Put the bucket down. Use the mop instead, quietly. If my friends come and see you bent over like this, I will not spare you. Efua nodded, eyes burning. When Abena walked away, the old woman set the bucket down slowly and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. In Denu, she had faced floods, hunger, and sickness without fear. But here, the fear of being sent back empty-handed made her bow lower than ever before. Days bled into each other like watercolor on damp paper. A montage unfolds. Morning. Auntie Efua on her knees, scrubbing the long corridor while Ya walks past in high heels, stepping on the wet floor without so much as a thank you. Afternoon. Efua stirring a giant pot of stew, steam clouding her tired eyes, sweat dripping into the fire. Her leg shakes uncontrollably as she leans on the counter for support. Evening. She carries a basket of ironed clothes up the stairs, pausing every few steps to catch her breath while Abena shouts from below. Hurry up! People are not paying us to breathe. Late night. She sits on the edge of her bed, rubbing ointment into her swollen knee, wincing quietly so no one hears. Through it all, one thing stays constant. When Kwesi appears, she straightens, smiles, and says she is fine. The narrator's voice weaves through the images. In the village, her suffering had a name, poverty. Here, in the mansion, it wore perfume and high heels, spoke English, smiled for pictures, and every day, as she kept silent to protect her son's happiness, her own strength drained away, drop by drop. One Sunday afternoon, the living room glowed with soft light. The TV played an old gospel song, and the smell of jollof filled the house. Kwesi sat on the carpet at his mother's feet, his suit jacket tossed on the sofa. He laughed as Auntie Efua gently picked imaginary dust from his hair, scolding him playfully. You, this boy, she said. You may be a billionaire now, but if you don't eat properly, I will still spank you like before. Kwesi laughed, head thrown back. I'm too big for that, Mama. Who told you? She replied. Any time is time for sense. Abena watched from the dining table, a glass of juice untouched in front of her. Her eyes narrowed slightly at the easy closeness between mother and son. You remember when I used to sell roasted plantain and hide the sweetest one for you? Efua continued. You would come running from school, shouting, Mama, did you keep my peace? Kwesi's gaze softened. I remember everything, he said quietly. I wouldn't be here without you. For a fleeting second, his eyes glistened. Abena's fingernails pressed into the glass stem until it squeaked. Later, in the kitchen, she murmured bitterly to Ya. You see how his eyes shine when he talks to that woman? She said. As if we don't exist. Ya shrugged, chewing a biscuit. She's his mother. What do you expect? Abena's voice hardened. I am the one living his current life with him. I am the one attending events, speaking to investors, protecting his image. Yet in his heart, she is still the hero. She paused, jaw clenched. As long as she remains here, part of him will never belong to us. Ya looked up, curiosity stirred by the venom in her mother's tone. So what will you do? She asked. Abena's eyes flickered toward the medicine cabinet. Sometimes, she said slowly, for a tree to grow straight, you must cut away the old branch. The sky grew heavy with low, gray clouds the day Kwesi announced a vital business dinner would be held at the house. Mummy Abena, he said excitedly over breakfast. Tonight's investors are very important. I want them to see the warmth of an African home, not just boardrooms. The chef will come, but let Mama cook her special groundnut soup too. It will show them where I came from. Auntie Efua's eyes lit up. Cooking for her son's business partners felt like an honor. Abena forced a smile. Of course, she said. It will be a night they never forget. Later, in her bedroom, she spoke in a low, heated voice to Ya. This is our chance, she said, opening a drawer and taking out a small bottle with no label. That old woman is stubborn. Bruises don't teach her. Kindness doesn't quiet her. But sickness. She shook the bottle, watching the white powder swirl. Sickness can remove her from this house without anyone blaming us. Ya stared at the bottle, nervous. What is that? She whispered.
Rat poison, Abena replied calmly.
In small doses, it only makes you weak, dizzy, confused. Doctors will say it is age. We give her enough, and she will have to go back to the village to recover. If God decides to call her home on the way, that is his business, not mine. Ya swallowed hard. Mama, what if we are caught? Abena's lips twisted into a cold smile. How? Will the broom in her room testify? Will the empty plates shout? She leaned closer. This is our house, our rules. Besides, you want your husband focusing on you, not that limping woman, don't you? Ya hesitated, greed wrestling with fear. Yes, she conceded quietly. Abena pressed the bottle into her palm. Then help me protect what is ours. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly, as if the sky itself disapproved. Evening descended with a strange stillness. The air felt too thick, too heavy, like it knew a secret the humans did not. In the kitchen, Auntie Efua stood at the stove, sleeves rolled up. The aroma of roasting groundnuts and simmering tomatoes filled the room, wrapping it in warmth and memory. She moved slowly but with practiced skill, stirring the bubbling pot with a long wooden spoon, tasting, adding salt, humming an old lullaby. This is how he liked it as a boy, she murmured. If the investors eat this, they will never forget this house. Ya lounged at the counter, pretending to scroll through her phone. Mama, don't stress yourself, she said loudly. The chef can handle it. You are old now. Efua smiled. Old fire still cooks sweet soup, she answered gently. Your husband will be proud. Madam Abena entered, clapping her hands together. Ah, the smell is wonderful, she exclaimed. Truly, Mama, you have magic in your hands. Efua beamed, wiping sweat from her brow. I'm doing my best. Abena moved behind her, eyes sliding toward the pot. Yeah, get the special spices from my drawer, she said casually. Ya's heart thudded, but she obeyed, slipping out and returning with the small bottle, now hidden in her palm. Give it to me, Abena whispered, taking it discreetly. When Efua turned to fetch more onions from the counter, Abena quickly unscrewed the cap. A bitter chemical smell rose. She sprinkled a small amount into a separate bowl and stirred it into the groundnut paste reserved for Efua's own portion, the one she always ate before serving others to taste. She stirred briskly, the powder dissolving. Auntie Efua turned back, none the wiser. Ma, should I fry plantain too? She asked. Yes, yes, Abena replied, voice overly bright. Everything must be perfect tonight. She licked a drop of the soup from the ladle that hadn't touched the poisoned bowl. Yes, very good, she said approvingly. The investors will love it, and so will you. Her eyes glinted. Outside, the first raindrops struck the kitchen window like a warning knock no one heard. Night had folded fully over Accra now. Rain fell steadily, drumming on the roof, sliding down the glass panes in silver rivers. In the dining room, the table was set for the arriving investors. Wine glasses polished, napkins folded like small white crowns. But they had called earlier to say a sudden emergency had moved the meeting to a hotel instead. Kwesi left quickly, promising to come back with good news. "We will keep your mother company," Abena had told him sweetly. "Don't worry." Now, the large room felt almost empty with only Auntie Efua at the end of the table. In front of her sat a steaming bowl of groundnut soup and a plate of soft rice. The rich scent rose, mingling with the faint smell of rain-soaked earth drifting in through a tiny open window. Abena stood at the doorway with arms folded, watching. "Mama," Abena called, "you should eat before the soup gets cold. At your age, you need strength." Efua smiled gratefully. "You are kind, my daughter. In the village, when I cooked, I always tasted first to be sure it was good. Let me do the same here." She scooped a spoonful, blew gently, and tasted. Warmth spread through her chest. "It is good," she murmured. "You helped me well." Abena's smile barely twitched. "Eat, eat," she urged. "Tonight you must sleep with a full stomach." Efua took another spoonful, then another. Her eyes closed briefly, savoring. In the doorway, shifted, unease prickling under her skin. "How much did you put?" she whispered. "Enough," Abena murmured back. "Don't be a coward now." Halfway through the bowl, Efua's hand trembled. A strange metallic taste edged the sweetness of the soup. She frowned. Maybe the groundnut was a little old," she said softly, but she ate again, not wanting to offend. Suddenly, a stab of pain shot through her chest. She gasped, hand flying to her ribs. The room blurred at the edges. Her spoon clattered against the bowl. "Madam," she breathed. "Something is wrong." Yas's eyes widened. Abena's face remained calm. "Old age," Abena said lightly. "You stood too long in the kitchen. Drink water." Efua tried to stand, but her weak leg buckled. The chair scraped loudly as it slid back. She clung to the edge of the table, knuckles white. The pain grew, tightening around her chest like an iron band. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. "Please help," she whispered. Her fingers slipped. The bowl toppled, soup splashing across the white tablecloth in a red-brown wave, dripping onto the marble like spilled blood. She crashed to the floor, her body curling in on itself. From above, Abena's voice drifted, distant and cold. "Call the girl to clean this mess," she said, "and take her to her room. If Kwesi comes and sees his mother lying on the floor, he will think we didn't care." The house help rushed in, eyes wide, kneeling beside Efua.
Mama,
"Mama, can you hear me?" Efua tried to speak, but only a faint rasp left her throat. As they dragged her limp body down the hallway, the chandelier swung gently above, its crystals catching the storm's flashes like mocking laughter. She had always imagined that, in her son's mansion, she would die peacefully, surrounded by love. Instead, she was being carried away like a broken plate, her groans swallowed by the sound of falling rain. The storm outside grew wild, wind howling through the trees of Cantonments. Down the street, the black SUV cut through sheets of rain, wipers beating furiously. Inside, Kwesi gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual, jaw clenched. The investors had postponed the dinner at the last minute, citing a sudden emergency. The restaurant reservation stood empty. His briefcase sat untouched on the passenger seat. He should have headed straight to his office to drown himself in emails. Instead, something tugged at his chest, an unease he couldn't name. "I'll just check on Mama," he murmured to himself. "Maybe God made the meeting cancel so I could spend tonight with her." He turned into the driveway. The gates rolled open slowly, rain striking the iron bars with soft metallic taps. As he parked, he noticed something odd. Only one light glowed inside the vast house, the kitchen. He grabbed his briefcase and ran through the rain, shoes splashing. The front door was slightly ajar. "Hello?" he called, stepping inside. "Mummy Abena?" "Yeah?" No answer. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant rumble of thunder. He headed toward the kitchen, footsteps echoing on the marble. As he turned the corner, something on the floor caught his eye. One of his mother's slippers lay in the middle of the hallway, turned on its side, still damp at the edge as if it had been dragged. He frowned. "Mama?" he called again, louder. "Where are you?" A drop of water, or was it a tear, glistened on the floor beside the slipper. His pulse quickened. He pushed open his mother's bedroom door. The room was dim. The smell of camphor and soap that usually comforted him now felt heavy, wrong. On the bed, Auntie Efua lay curled on her side, her wrapper twisted, sweat glistening on her forehead. Her breathing was ragged, shallow. "Mama!" he shouted, rushing to her side. "Mama, what's wrong?" Her eyes fluttered open weakly. Kwesi," she whispered. "My chest, fire. I can't." He touched her forehead. It was clammy and cold. Her fingers, when they clutched his arm, shook violently. "We're going to the hospital now," he said, fighting panic. "Don't talk. Just breathe." He scooped her frail body into his arms as carefully as he could, her head resting against his shoulder like when he was a child. From the corridor, Ya appeared suddenly, her face pale. "Baby, you're home?" she stammered. We were just, I think Mama ate too much. Old people, you know." "Open the door," Kwesi snapped, his voice sharper than she'd ever heard. "Now." The command cut off any further explanation. He carried his mother out into the rain, shielding her with his own body as thunder cracked overhead. In the back of his mind, a question pounded with every heartbeat. What happened in this house while he was gone? The emergency room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Nurses rushed around in green scrubs. Machines beeped. Monitors glowed. Rain still battered the windows, a relentless drumbeat. Kwesi paced the corridor outside a small treatment room, hands shaking. His shirt clung to him, still damp from the storm. Every few minutes he glanced toward the door, hoping for news. Finally, the door opened. A middle-aged doctor stepped out, removing his gloves. "Mr. Kwesi Efua?" he asked. "Yes," Kwesi replied quickly, stepping forward. "How is my mother? What's wrong?" The doctor's expression was grave. "We stabilized her for now," he said. "She came very close to not waking up." "What exactly did she eat before this happened?" Kwesi's heart thudded. "Groundnut soup," he said slowly. "Her favorite." "Why?" The doctor let out a controlled breath. "We did an initial test," he explained. "There are traces of a toxin in her system, very similar to what we see in cases of rat poison or certain pesticides. If you had brought her even 30 minutes later, we might be having a very different conversation." Kwesi stared at him, the words colliding in his head. "Poison?" he repeated. The doctor nodded. "We'll run more detailed tests to be sure. But for now, that is our working assumption." He hesitated. "Mr. Efua, is there any chance she might have taken something by mistake? Or," his voice softened, "is there anyone who would want to hurt her?" Kwesi's mind flashed through images like a slideshow. His mother laughing at the dining table, Abena praising her cooking, the mysterious slipper on the floor, the single tear. "No," he said automatically. Then slower, I don't know." The doctor placed a hand on his shoulder. "Think carefully," he advised, "because if this was not an accident, then your mother didn't just get sick tonight. Someone tried to kill her." The word kill echoed through Kwesi's bones. He felt the ground tilt under him, just as it had for his mother hours earlier. As the doctor walked away, the corridor suddenly felt too narrow, the air too thin. Poison. In his house. With his mother. And only a few people had been there. Later that night, after nurses settled Auntie Efua into a ward, Kwesi sat alone in the hospital's small waiting area. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. The plastic chairs were cold beneath him. His phone lay in his hand, untouched, screen dark. Ya had called twice. He hadn't answered. He stared at nothing for a long time, replaying every moment of the last few months. Every bruise, every tired smile his mother had hidden behind the words, "I'm fine." Slowly, his thumb moved. He unlocked his phone and opened the home security app he rarely used. The mansion's camera list appeared. Gate, living room, corridor, kitchen. He hesitated, heart pounding, then tapped kitchen. The screen showed a still image of the empty room, timestamped from a few minutes ago. He scrolled the timeline backward with a trembling finger, pausing at the hour before he came home. The feed rewound, then began to play. He watched his mother standing at the stove, stirring, humming. He watched Abena and Ya enter. He saw laughter, movements, gestures. For a moment it looked ordinary. Then he saw it. As his mother turned to reach for onions, Abena signaled to Ya. Ya slipped something small into her hand. Abena unscrewed a cap and shook powder into a bowl before adding it to a smaller pot set aside. They moved with the ease of people doing something they had planned carefully. Kwesi's breath caught. He increased the volume. The phone's tiny speaker crackled. "Our special spice," Abena's voice said lightly. "She will sleep well tonight." His hand shook so badly he almost dropped the phone. He scrolled further forward. The screen showed his mother sitting alone at the dining table, eating. After a few minutes, she clutched her chest, collapsed. No one rushed to help. Abena only called for the maid to clean. The sound of his mother's faint, strangled groan cut through the tiny speaker and through his heart. Kwesi froze. His eyes burned, but the tears refused to fall at first. His entire body felt numb. This couldn't be real. Yet the evidence glowed in his hand, undeniable. Abena, the woman he had trusted as a mother. The wife he had vowed to protect. They had stood in his kitchen and put poison into his own mother's food. His eyes finally overflowed. One tear dropped onto the phone screen, sliding down over the image of his mother writhing on the floor. Not from weakness, from a pain too big for his chest. The video ended. The screen went black. So did something deep inside him. He inhaled slowly, his breath coming out as a shaky exhale. When he lifted his head, his face was no longer that of a smiling businessman. It was the face of a son whose entire world had just cracked in half. He rose to his feet, shoulders squared. This night, someone's life was going to change forever. The storm had calmed by the time Kwesi returned to the mansion, but the air still smelled of wet earth and tension. He walked in through the front door without knocking, footsteps firm on the marble. His wet shoes left faint prints behind him. In the living room, Abena and Ya sat side by side on the sofa, pretending to watch TV. They jumped when they saw him. "Baby," Ya cried, standing quickly. "How is Mama? We have been praying." Abena pressed a hand dramatically to her chest. "Is she okay?" she asked, eyes wide with practiced concern. "Old age is cruel. We were so worried." Kwesi didn't answer. Instead, he set his phone on the coffee table, connected it to the large TV with a few swift taps, and stepped back. The screen lit up, then froze on an image of the kitchen. Ya's face immediately drained of color. Abena's smile faltered. "Sit down," Kwesi said quietly. The calm in his voice was more frightening than any shout. Abena forced a small laugh. Kwesi, what is this? I said sit down. Something in his tone made her obey. He picked up the remote and pressed play. The video began. They watched themselves move across the giant screen. Abena taking the bottle, handing it to her, the powder, the smaller pot, the satisfied looks. In the silence of the living room, every rustle, every word, every smirk seemed deafening. When the clip reached the part where they stood at the doorway watching Efua collapse, Kwesi pressed pause. No one spoke. Finally, Abena cleared her throat. This is misunderstanding, she stammered. That was just herbal powder. For strength. Maybe it reacted badly with her medicine. Kwesi turned on her, eyes blazing. Herbal powder? He repeated. You call rat poison herbal powder? Her mouth dropped open. You checked? She whispered. Doctor said if I had delayed, my mother would be dead. He said, voice shaking. In my own house, after eating from my own table, because the people I trusted most decided she was an inconvenience. Ya began to cry, tears streaking down her face. I didn't want to, baby, she sobbed. It was Mama's idea. She said it would only make her weak. I swear. Shut up, he snapped. Both of you. Shame washed over the room like a wave. From the hallway, 2 elders from Abena's extended family and a lawyer stepped inside. They had arrived moments earlier, summoned by Kwesi. What is going on here? One elder asked. Kwesi gestured to the screen. Watch. He played the video again, this time from the beginning. The elders watched in horrified silence. When the clip ended, one of them turned slowly toward Abena. Abena, he said hoarsely, is this what you have become? She swallowed, searching for words. I was pushed, she insisted weakly. You know how village women can be. Enough, the elder cut in. We will not help you bury this. Kwesi looked at his lawyer. Prepare the charges, he said coldly. Attempted murder, elder abuse, whatever the law allows. I want every word of it used. Yet dropped to her knees, reaching for his leg. Kwesi, please, she begged. I am your wife. I made a mistake. Don't destroy my life. He stepped back as if her touch burned. You destroyed it yourself, he replied. The day you agreed to harm the woman who bled to raise me. From today you are only my wife on paper. And that will not last long. He turned to Abena, who sat stiff, eyes darting. As for you, he said quietly, I used to pray that God would bless you for raising ya. Tonight, I pray God has mercy on you, because I no longer can. 15 minutes later, blue and red lights painted the driveway in harsh colors. A police car idled by the gate, engine humming. Inside, 2 officers stepped into the living room, caps tucked under their arms. Mrs. Abena Owusu? The taller one asked. She rose shakily, eyes darting between them and the elders. Yes, officer, this must be a misunderstanding. She began. My son-in-law is angry. Family matters. The officer held up a hand. We have seen the video evidence provided, he said calmly. And we have a statement from the hospital. This is not only a family matter. This is a criminal matter. He took out handcuffs. The metallic click echoed like a gunshot. Madam, he continued, you are under arrest for attempted murder and abuse of an elderly person. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. Abena's knees buckled. Yeah, do something, she cried. But Ya only stood there, face crumpled, tears flowing. Another officer gently took her arm as a person of interest.
Mama, I'm sorry Ya sobed.
I didn't think it would. Abena twisted toward Kwesi, desperation erasing her pride. Kwesi, my son, please, she begged. Think of what people will say. I was hard on her, yes, but murder? You know Kwesi turned away, jaw clenched. If people must talk, he said slowly, let them say that I chose my mother's life over your greed. The officers snapped the handcuffs around her wrists. The harsh metal dug into her skin, colder than the rain outside. As they led her out of the house, neighbors peered through gates. Security guards whispered among themselves. The woman who had once boasted loudly about being the mother-in-law of a billionaire now stumbled in bare feet, mascara streaked, wrapper slipping. She tried to pull free, shouting, I am the wife of a diplomat. I am the mother of... The officer tightened his grip. Tonight, he said, you are just a suspect. They pushed her into the back of the police car. The door slammed shut with finality. From the balcony above, unseen, the house help watched silently, one hand pressed over her mouth. For the first time in months, she allowed herself a small, relieved smile. Justice had finally walked through the gate. The next morning, sunlight filtered gently through the white curtains of Accra Central Hospital, soft and warm, as if the city itself was trying to apologize for the previous night. In room 207, Auntie Efua lay propped up against pillows, her face pale but calmer, and 4-line fed clear fluid into the back of her hand. The harsh, twisting pain in her chest had faded to a dull ache. Beside her bed, Kwesi sat on a plastic chair, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. Dark circles bruised the skin under his eyes. He had not slept. He watched his mother's breathing rise and fall, counting each inhale like a blessing. Slowly, she opened her eyes. Kwesi? She murmured, voice raspy. He leaned forward quickly. I'm here, Mama, he said, forcing a reassuring smile. I'm not going anywhere. Her gaze moved around the room, confusion clouding her features. This is hospital? She asked. Yes, he replied. You collapsed yesterday, but you are safe now. Her fingers twitched weakly on the blanket. I told them not to worry you, she whispered. I didn't want you to be ashamed of me. His heart twisted painfully. Don't say that, he whispered back. I could never be ashamed of you. As he looked at her fragile form, memories rose unbidden, vivid and sharp. He was 8 again, running along the edge of the Denu stream with a makeshift kite. The water sparkled mischievously under the sun. Mama, see my plane, he had shouted, laughing. Kwesi, don't go too close, she warned, limping along behind. The rocks are slippery, but he was too excited. He stepped onto a moss-covered rock, and his small feet slipped. The world spun. Icy water swallowed him. He thrashed, gasping, arms flailing, lungs burning. He remembered the terror clearly. The cold grabbing his ankle, pulling him under. The sound of rushing water in his ears. Then a hand, his mother's hand, had grabbed his wrist with a grip far stronger than her limp suggested. She didn't think, didn't hesitate. She plunged into the stream after him, her bad leg crashing against rocks, skin splitting. She shoved him upward, choking, until his head broke the surface. He coughed, sputtering, air burning his lungs. When he looked back, she was crawling onto the muddy bank, shaking violently, lip bleeding, her leg twisted at a terrible angle. Mama, did it hurt? He had whispered, tears mixing with river water on his cheeks. She had pulled him into her arms, ignoring her own pain. As long as you live, she had said, voice trembling. I can bear any pain. Back in the hospital room, the memory seared through him like fire. Now she lay in a crisp white bed, injured not by accident, not by poverty, but by someone he had brought into her life. Tears finally escaped, falling unchecked down his face. "Mama," he choked, taking her hand gently, mindful of the four.
I'm sorry.
"I trusted the wrong people. I left you alone in a house that was supposed to protect you. I failed you." She looked at him for a long moment, her gaze softening. "You came back," she whispered. "That means God did not take your heart from you." He bowed his head, pressing it lightly against her bandaged hand, his shoulders shaking. Outside the window, the storm-washed sky opened into clear blue. For the first time in a long while, hope slipped quietly into the room, sitting beside their pain. Weeks later, the sun rose over a quieter part of Accra, where houses were smaller but streets felt friendlier. A modest two-bedroom home sat at the corner of a lane lined with mango trees. Its walls were freshly painted a soft cream. A small garden bloomed in the front, with neatly planted herbs and peppers. A taxi pulled up, and Kwesi stepped out, then turned to help his mother. Auntie Efua emerged slowly, dressed in a new but simple cloth, her legs supported by a stronger cane provided by the hospital. She stared at the house, eyes wide. "Where are we?" she asked. Kwesi smiled. "Your house," he said. "Our house, if you allow me to visit." Her lips parted in shock. "Ah, this big place? For me?" He nodded, pride and remorse mingling on his face. "I sold the old mansion," he explained quietly. "I couldn't breathe inside those walls anymore. The new one I'm building will have room for us all. But for now, I wanted a home that feels like peace, not prison." He led her up the short path, hand steady under her elbow. Inside, the living room was simple, soft couches, a small TV, colorful curtains that reminded her of village cloth. On one wall hung framed photos. Young Kwesi in school uniform, Efua at the market, the two of them standing beside a half-built kiosk years ago. Her eyes filled with tears. "You kept these?" she whispered. "I kept everything," he said. "I just forgot to honor where I came from. That will never happen again." He showed her the kitchen, already stocked with ingredients she loved. Dried fish, palm oil, fresh vegetables. "There is a woman from church who will help you with chores," he added. "You won't lift heavy things. You'll only cook when you want to." She laughed softly, wiping her eyes. "And if I want to cook every day?" she teased. "Then I will come and eat every day," he replied. "But this time you will sit at the table with me. No one will ever call you staff again." She reached up and cupped his face with her rough hands. "My son," she said, voice breaking. "I could have lived and died in a hut and still been proud of you. But today you made me feel like more than a mother. You made me feel seen." He hugged her gently, afraid to hurt her yet unwilling to let go. Outside, children's laughter floated from a nearby house. A neighbor waved from across the street. Life moved on, simple and kind. For the first time since entering the mansion months ago, Auntie Efua breathed freely. She was not surrounded by marble or crystal here, but for the first time in a long time, she felt truly rich. The camera pulls back. From the little house, from the quiet street, from the city of Accra itself, bustling and loud. Not every enemy comes with a knife in their hand. Some arrive with smiles, expensive perfume, and sweet words on their tongue. Madam Abena believed that if she married her daughter into wealth, the mansion would belong to her forever. She forgot one simple truth. No one owns the heart of a child more than the mother who suffered to raise them. Greed blinded them. They thought an old, limping woman was easy to erase. But the same God who saw her walking to market at dawn who counted every coin she sacrificed for school fees, also saw the poison slip into her bowl. And when the time was right, truth played itself like a video on the biggest screen in the living room. Back to Efua and Kwesi, sitting on the small porch of the new house as the sun sets. He peels boiled plantain. She laughs at something he says. The air between them is light. Parents are not perfect. They may be loud. They may be old-fashioned. Their grammar may embarrass you in front of your friends. But nobody on this earth will ever carry your pain the way a true mother does. When Kwesi nearly drowned as a boy, it was not a rich woman with soft hands who jumped into the river. It was the same woman with calloused feet and a crooked leg, the one the world now called village. Maybe you, watching this story, have a mother or father who does not fit into the glittering world you dream of. Maybe you feel tempted to hide them, to be ashamed, to replace them in your heart with people who seem more polished. Remember this tale. The house that stands on a foundation of contempt will eventually crack. But the home built on gratitude can survive any storm. What did you learn from this story? If you were in Kwesi's position, would you press charges against your own in-laws? Or would you forgive and forget? Tell us in the comments. I read every single one. Where are you watching from? Accra, Lagos, Kumasi, London, Toronto, New York, or any corner of the world? Type your city below. Let's see how far our African Tales family has reached. If stories like this touched your heart, stories that remind us to honor sacrifice, to protect the vulnerable, and to never let greed decide how we treat family, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs the reminder. Money can build big houses with marble floors, but only love can turn four walls into a real home. Never trade a true mother's tears for the approval of strangers, because in the end, the poison you mix for others may be the same poison that destroys your own peace. Fade out on Efua and Kwesi laughing softly on the porch as evening swallows the sky.